And we've started just like that. Look, you see, you already like this bonus material more than the buttoned up, way too serious headlines we normally do, guys. It's the way it is.
That's how people see headlines. Is just
Right.
very serious,
way too
conservative.
Way too,
don't talk, joke around. Yeah,
cerebral. Yeah.
No. This is bonus material for our friends in the Renegade room. Partly also because we feel like our sponsors have been so good to us, they should get a little extra love in here. So registers, as you see on the screen, the most delicious sausage in the world. And also Dr. Birch, the best orthodontist. Like, come on, dog. What are we doing out here? Sorry, I'm like Kirk Herbstreit with my dog.
It's the Renegade room. Anything goes in the Renegade room.
Let put the dog on camera.
He wants to be in your lap all the time. It's unbelievable. So it is. Snow in the front lawn as we do this version of Seminole Headlines bonus material. Still locked in. Ira, you're right around the corner from me. Still plenty of snow for you?
Yeah, well, it's kind of thick ice. It looks like
snow.
It's
thick ice, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like snow, but it's not really. You're not throwing a lot of snowball. If you are, you're doing damage. You're not throwing these snowballs at anybody you like. They're pretty hardy.
Last night at about 11:30, though, it was snow.
It was.
It was glorious. Corey, you didn't get any?
I mean, man, yeah, some, but most of it was just hard rain that turned into ice. Like it was raining at midnight at my house. It was raining. Rain like you could hear.
I saw Stephanie was pissed. I could tell she was so disappointed, but I wanted to be like, well, you just live in the wrong area. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, we live too close to the sun. We live too close to the sun on this part of Tallahassee. So it was still all white. It was still a winter wonderland. It was a wintry mix wonderland. So there wasn't like the heavy snow falling from the sky like I was hoping. So that was a little disappointing, but it's still cool. It's still cool to walk out and see a neighborhood like that.
You could have come over to one of our houses. You just had to ask.
We got the actual snow, Corey, because we live in the best part.
Yeah, I mean, I have a bobsled, so I could get over there easily.
Well, the good news is I was able to race my car today like I had hoped for on the icy roads. I like to take risks. And I get out there on Thomasville Road and gun it good 100 miles per hour just to see if the tires will connect to the road and we'll stay intact. Good times. I kid everybody, we're not doing that, obviously. Let's get to these questions that were in the Renegade room. We appreciate folks who weighed in here, and we'll be doing this in the future, and it kind of might be random because it is bonus material, so some days we'll do it on the same day that we do headlines. Other days it'll be a Wednesday or a Thursday, but either way, it'll be unique to you guys. So if you want to avoid the riffraff, roll on in here to the Renegade room and make it happen. Ira, when can we expect an obituary of the 24 football season? Are you going to write one of those?
So who asked that real quick?
Oh, that's probably a good idea. Noles since 54.
Noles since 54. I've gone back and forth on this. So in the past, when Florida State's had a calamitous season,
calamitous.
The coach, well, usually the coaches left. You know, so we did the Jimbo Chronicles, which were a lot of fun. Then when Taggart left, I don't even know if we had a catchy name. We just kind of like this is the nonsense that just happened here, and this is why they fired the guy after less than 2 years. This is a little different because some of these people are still here. Norvell's still here. A few of the assistant coaches are still here. A lot of the players are still here. I'm not saying we should shy away from doing that. I also just don't know how productive it is. And so I don't know. I've gone back and forth. And I also don't know how many people want to dwell on that while these guys are still here. Again, it's not like a totally clean, fresh start. So sitting here burying, Mike Norvell or whatever, he's still your head coach. I don't know. I've gone back and forth on it. I've got some ideas. There are some things I want to do that kind of will be looking at the past and looking forward. But do you think people want to really just spend more time litigating what the hell went wrong? I don't know.
I would like to ask the both of you this: if you wrote because you guys would be writing the piece for Warchant, I wouldn't be. I'll talk about it and obviously vet to varying degrees on my show in the afternoons. But like, if you were to seriously sit down and look back on it and write, I'm curious what the angle would be. It's not that you want to avoid pissing off anybody because what happened is what happened, and you're going to write about it as long as you're telling the truth. But trying to get a handle on that truth would be A, pretty tough, and B, like, what would you do? Would you go? Do you think it's possible to get the head coach to answer on the record honestly what he thought went wrong last year?
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. That's the angle I want to go more. Like
Sure.
I've already put in a request to Florida State to sit down with Mike Norvell and kind of reassess, not necessarily make him answer for everything that went wrong, but when he has time at the after recruiting closes a little bit this early this spring, and as you go into the spring, sit down and have an honest conversation about his thoughts on what went wrong and all that. I also think it could be worth talking to former players, who've left and get some of their perspectives. The problem, what I don't want to do is, and we've already seen a couple of people do. I think The Athletic did it, and ESPN may have done something similar too, where you go out and talk to these coaches who've been fired and staff members who have been fired, because now you're just getting into a lot of the blame game. And there's a lot of people over there who can point to other people. So I'm trying to, I want to do this to some degree, but I also want it to be not letting people just take pot shots at each other.
What would you do, Corey?
Well, I would probably focus on the Cal game. I would just write an oral history on the game against California where they rose up. You guys remember that? 14-9.
Like it was yesterday.
Look, the way you would attack that is you'd have to ask Norvell. But the problem is Norvell wouldn't be, to be honest. Number one, I don't think he wouldn't have a problem admitting he made mistakes, and he made mistakes evaluating. There were mistakes in development, recruiting, whatever. But he would absolutely have to take shots at former coaches. And I don't know that on the record he'd be willing to do that. You know what I mean? Like, what's the point of that for his perspective? He already fired them, so you know what he thinks of them. So then why would he then heap more dirt on their graves, so to speak?
That's what I mean. I think it's hard to write a true obituary. You guys would want to do it. I'd like to have the conversation on the JCS as well and have him talk to the – but what's he going to do? I don't think
I'm pitching this interview as not on TV, not on camera, because I think that might give him a chance to maybe open up a little bit more if it's not sitting there staring at a camera. But
sure.
Maybe he'll do it on the JCS, whatever. I guess my thing is, I don't know that pointing fingers to me. See, I guess that's my thing is, man, we know the big mistakes. The evaluations were terrible. The decisions about what they wanted to do from a scheme standpoint with the personnel they have, they were wrong. That's all apparent. We don't need anybody. I don't know if I need anybody. And that's what's happened so far is there's been a lot of finger pointing about the evaluations were made, who made them, and that type of thing. To me, I'm more interested constructively. What did he learn from this? And how's it going to apply? How's he going to avoid anything like that ever happening again?
But to answer what he learned, he has to admit what went wrong and who was at fault. So there will be a blame game.
Ultimately, he's at fault.
Well, right. So that's what people want to hear. Like, he's still the $1 million head coach, the multi-million-dollar head coach.
He said that though.
But like what exact? I mean, I think if he was to get really precise about just like one small it's not a small facet, but like what the hell with the offensive line, man? Yeah. What the hell? Explain it to me like I'm 7.
That would require him to rip Alex Atkins. It really would.
Or rip himself for believing that not believing what his eyes told him in 2023. But his eyes in 2023 told him maybe it wasn't as good as he thought it. He thought it might be.
Maybe it's acknowledging that he didn't do enough things in practice to really vet that.
Yeah, that too. Like all that, I think is legit. That would be a legitimate story that I think would be really interesting because it better not happen again, and he better learned all his lessons.
Yeah, he'll be fired if it does. But I'll say this though. I think what's interesting is a lot of times, and it's true for you and me and any of us. If you make a big mistake in your life, if you really make a regrettable error and something that you look back on and say, I wish I hadn't said that or done that, or I could have gone about this much better way had I realized this, and this. Most of the time that happens when you have a lot of time to reflect, when you've had more than a year, a half a year, 6 months, when you've really contemplated the nuances of everything. It's probably way too fresh for him to even really realize all of the things that built up to those eventual failures. Because like you guys have said, it's not a singular thing. There might be some obvious things that he could cop to right now. such as I misevaluated this player or that player. I made a mistake on the quarterback. I wish I hadn't. Yeah, right. But there are a lot bigger mistakes that see you go 2-10. I mean, there were a lot of things. And I don't know that he'll realize all of those things until he gets further and further removed from that disaster that, was 2-10. It's kind of hard to do.
Otherwise, I mean, I think it again, the only things that really appeal to me a whole lot are, again, maybe talking to some former players about their perceptions of how it unraveled. Not necessarily trying to get them to blame the coaches or whoever, but maybe some of the guys who have been here for the good times and the bad to share their perspectives. So
I remember after Jimbo was gone, I talked to a former player who still loved Jimbo. Mm-hmm. And yet he was willing to say to me, he's like, oh man, I don't want to go on the record. I'm just telling you from my perspective, he made a mistake here, here, and here. And we kind of knew it in the moment. So he was doing what you're talking about, right, where it wasn't just taking shots. It was kind of like, man, I love that guy. He did a lot of great things for us, but this happened, that sort of thing. Next one was from Miko, M-I-C-C-O. Most believe with Gus running the offense, it will be run, run, run. I agree it will be run first, but my impression is there will be more passing than many expect and possibly much more. Deuce and Squirrel didn't come here to be decoys. What are your thoughts on what you think the offense will look like? Thanks, and I always enjoy the show. Thank you, sir. Well, I think we all agree they're going to throw the ball more than maybe many people think. Absolutely they are. I would think that that's more of the evolution of his offense, incorporating those aspects of the modern game. You're not going to be able to recruit receivers very much if you don't throw the ball at all.
Right.
Yeah, and you hope that they're throwing because they want to, not because they have to. You hope the running game is good enough that they're not always in 3rd and 8 or 2nd and 11 and have to throw the ball. But look, man, you don't bring Deuce Robinson here to throw it to him twice a game. You just don't. Like, you think about in 2022, Johnny had a big year by all accounts, especially what we were expecting maybe from him when they signed him. But there were games where he had 1 catch. There were games where he had 11 yards. In the Miami game, they threw it 13 times in that game total, or 15 times. Like, I think Norvell would like that to a point. But in 2025, I don't know that you want an offense. You're not Army. You are in the state of Florida. You do want to attract big time receivers. You want to get the Jeremiah Smiths of the world. You don't do that running 90 or 80% of the time. So I do think Castellanos is a capable enough passer, and hopefully the receivers have been in that position has been improved so much that it won't be scary every time they drop back to throw like it was last year.
Yeah, and I think the fact that Randy Pittman, who played tight end for him at UCF, really wasted no time, coming to Florida State. Now he was a guy that Florida State recruited out of high school. He goes to UCF. He had a really nice 2 years there. I think caught over 30 passes this past season, and he wants to be in this offense. And Florida State that's what Florida State already bringing back Landon Thomas, who was at one point considered number 1 tight end in the country last year. They're bringing in Chase Lofton at tight end. To me, that's as indicative as anything that they really want these tight ends, and it's not just to be blockers. They're going to have multiple guys at tight end who are going to be pass catchers to go with the receivers that they mentioned and the receivers they have coming up. So yeah, man, we all talk about the running first, and we talk because they brought Castellanos in here for a reason, because he's kind of the key to kind of getting that going. But yeah, I think we all expect him to throw the ball a lot.
He's added to his offenses over the years. I started down the path of doing sort of a deep dive into Malzahn and how he arrived at some of the philosophies, the early books that he wrote, and some of the, you see the videos online. That's where YouTube is so awesome. If anybody else out there listening to this, watching this, wants to get a better sense of the evolution of Malzahn's offense and, where it was rooted in, what it was rooted in. You can find all that stuff. There are versions of really young Gus Malzahn talking to coaches at conventions about the hurry up aspect of it, about the number of plays as opposed to, time of possession, and all of these different things that he's talking about. And then you see the additions, like all the way to the versions we saw at Auburn, which featured plenty of passing. In addition to obviously running the football with the quarterback and playing at a quick pace. So I would agree with that. Island Chief writes, gentlemen, so are we headed to February and what may be his final season? There is no talk of Ham's retirement yet, a replacement search or a contract extension. I realize Hamilton's lawyers have advised him to make no statements, but should he send some of the message regarding the lawsuit he faces? I don't think he can.
Those are two separate issues. Yeah, I mean the
Right.
lawsuit. His answer will be in their response to the lawsuit, which should be coming out any day in the courts. Once the complaint was filed by the former player's attorney, and now
he's not going to talk about that publicly.
Yeah, and then so he's got to put out his. Their response will go become public when it's filed. It just hasn't been filed yet. As far as his contract goes, yeah, man, he's at the end of his contract. I think it speaks pretty loudly the fact that they did not renew him at the end of last season. And I think if you're Leonard Hamilton and maybe people on that coaching staff, you're hoping you make it to the NCAA tournament, and they have no choice but maybe to give you another year if you want another year. And if this year goes south, and right now I think, Corey, we think it's it's hanging in the balance. But if it were to go south, then I can't imagine any way in the world they're going to extend him. Even acknowledging it's going to be hard to hire the coach maybe you want when you don't know what conference you're going to be in, and all that's still in the air.
But this isn't tenable, right? You can't go year to year not knowing who your head coach is going to be for the foreseeable future. Like I'm trying to come up with a scenario where he is the coach next year.
I think if they make the tournament, I don't think they're going to fire him.
But wouldn't that be the best time? So we have to wait till he really, really sucks again? You know what I'm saying? Like, so when he goes 15-15, that's the right time to fire him or not renew him. Like, I feel like.
Well, then why didn't they? I'm saying my question to Michael
because they had a year left. They had a year left on the contract. So why pay him to not coach? Pay him this year to coach, and then no matter what happens, short of Final Four, Sweet 16, some stuff we don't envision. I don't understand. What would he take a 1-year contract? Why would you offer a 1-year contract? Do you take this sport seriously or not?
He doesn't have any options. It's not like he's going somewhere else probably.
But you're not taking the sport seriously, in my opinion, if you're offering a head coach a 1-year contract.
Well, how much have they invested in Florida State men's basketball in the last 3 years? What effort has there been in terms of NIL?
Sorry, I didn't hear any of that. I literally didn't. I kicked my mic off. I'm sure you were saying I'm really smart.
That's exactly what. No, I don't think they are taking it that seriously. I think it's in a holding pattern.
Well, get out of the holding pattern. It's been 4 years since they were good.
Going to until all this is resolved. They got kicked in the nuts by the football team sucking and all of the things that are going on with the lawsuit in the stadium and everything else. It's an awful. I'll speak for a Florida State faithful. This is stupid. It makes the athletic department and basketball and everything look small. I hate it. I hate it. It does seem inconsequential, like it doesn't matter.
I think their plan, and you may not like it, I think their plan is to make a change after the season. I think that is if we could give Michael Alford or the administration's truth serum, I think that's what they're planning to do. I'm just saying if they make a run and go in the NCAA tournament, you're going to fire a guy that's been here for 20-something years. People have always liked a lot. And now he just made the tournament. You're going to turn around and fire him to hire who? I mean, that's my.
Right, and I think what they would do is they'd get a reprieve, Ira, because they're eventually going to move on from him. Obviously, when they do find out the answers to the questions about the lawsuit and everything else, or move on from him, however you want to phrase it, they would get a reprieve. They'd get another bridge year.
But if you get to the tournament, then that's a good year. That's probably worth not only an extension but a raise. Are they going to extend him 2 years?
It's not like they did.
I mean, then what are we doing? If an NCAA tournament just buys you an extra year, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing?
That's what I just said.
Yeah,
and he's at his age. I mean, he's in his mid-70s. How many years? I mean, he may want 3 more years. You don't have to give it to him. And again, who are you negotiating against? I think you just tell him, listen, Mike. Listen, these last 3 years were unacceptable. We let you coach this season. You made the NCAA tournament. Congratulations. Your reward for that is you're going to get to coach another year. But we're not going to give you a long-term contract. If you don't like it, you can retire or resign. Yeah. So that's I know this isn't what people want, but I think this is where they're at. I mean, if they weren't at this situation, they would have fired him after last season.
Yeah, no, that's the point. It's an untenable and ugly situation, but it's the one they're in.
Right.
Yeah,
it sucks.
From the one caveat, I would say, at least we're in this era where we can at least acknowledge the BS that coaches don't need 4-year contracts to recruit, because they brought in 10 players this year with him in the last year of his contract, including Malik Ewan and Daquan Jackson, that are really good players. Daquan Davis. So that, it's not like you couldn't get players in here or that you couldn't get good players in here next year either.
From the Renegade Room, I see a bunch of the pillars in the Renegade Room with great questions and topics. Our fan base's skepticism is going to be very high as we head into the season. What do each of you feel will be the biggest preseason sign that our team is on the right track for success? And then he gives an example. This is from S. Quinn 67. I remember the discussions of proficiency prior to 23, not missing a pass, ball never hits the ground, etc. Have a great show, is what he says. Thank you. S. Quinn 67, class of 93.
What sign are we looking for?
Yeah, what's the sign that our team is on the right track towards success?
My biggest thing,
question, actually, now that I think about it.
It's a good question. To me, my biggest thing is going to be, I want to see physicality at practice, like real physicality, not just, a collision and that's it, but, like real straining and fighting, just a sign of that they're going to be able, that's something you can carry over to a game. Because to me, I feel like the biggest thing we were missing last year, I thought.
I'd like to see some special plays by wide receivers. Malik made a few in August, but it wasn't, they were good catches. Morlock, too, made some really contested catches, but they were few and far between. And there wasn't a lot of look, man, the offense was so bad. You obviously want the defense to be good, too, but the offense has to take such a drastic step up in production and just watchability that I would like to see a couple big plays. Like, the only guy that made big plays consistently all year was Mekhi Danzy. I'm talking about in practice, and he played 5 snaps the whole season. So I want to see guys that are going to be on the field actually making plays in practice. I don't expect them to be Keon, but Keon 2 or 3 times a week would just make a play where you're like, holy cow. Either he's running wide open, he makes a dude look silly, or he mosses a kid. You just didn't see that much at all last year. At all, obviously, and you didn't see it in the games ever.
I'm going to go the other side of the ball for a couple reasons. Partly the offense that they're running. I don't think it's going to lend itself to you seeing a bunch of big plays down the field. And then I want to see a defense that's willing to come up and hit somebody and swarm to the football and play with a great deal of passion and physicality. To Ira's point, I want it to be uncomfortable how bad the defense is dominating the offense. I know that will make for boring practices, but I've watched enough passivity and sort of incoherent. And what I mean by incoherent, there was no sort of collaborative effort. It was not a coordinated effort on defense. You had good days and bad days and everything in between, just like you had good games and bad games, but they were still not proficient in a lot of aspects of defensive football, even when they were good. And a lot of that being good was they had, as we now know, a bunch of NFL players. I need to see a defense that works collectively to just brutalize people. And it's been so long. You got to go back to 13 to find that kind of a defense that communicated well, played fast, and played with a large degree of physical toughness.
So let me get this straight. In August, you want to see the FSU offense get dominated. You didn't see that enough because this fall. I mean, I'm tired of watching the FSU offense get dominated. Yeah, it's been 400 days since it wasn't dominated.
I feel like it kind of sets up oddly for the offense to get dominated as they install this thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that opposing defenses on other teams are going to dominate Florida State's offense. It's a sort of a weird deal. I hated the way we practiced, and I hated the lack of cohesion on defense. It bothers me. I can't stand it. I don't want to go on and on about it, but I certainly hope that we're struck by how physical and aggressive they are.
Without tackling.
How they hunt the football. Yeah, how they hunt the football.
We got a few more questions, I think.
Yeah, we do.
Rifle through them.
Let's see. How do you guys see the role of collectives like the Battles In with the new settlement? I think that the collectives movie, this is from James Knoll. The collectives it's a great mystery. What's going to happen? It's going to be different place to place. One of the things I do know is that they have to be sort of a group that finds opportunities, marketing opportunities for players and dealing with their agents. That's different from the money that's being paid out from the athletic department with a pseudo salary cap that they're hoping for with the house money. So that's how I think it's a different group finding in addition to opportunities for players. I think that's one of the roles that's going to take place for collectives.
Yeah, the idea is it's supposed to be much more real NIL marketing on top of the revenue sharing. So the revenue sharing, players will get, this is how much you make. You're the quarterback, you're going to make $1 million or whatever it is. And then there's going to be opportunities above that. Schools are going to create opportunities above that to still kind of win recruits over and transfers over, but it's got to be a little bit more above board. So it is going to look different.
And it's going to look a lot different to guys that aren't the quarterback. It's going to be $10,000 to be pushing freaking Nissans is what it's going to be. I mean, it's not going to be what we see now, which is this fake thing. All right, here we go. Island Chief wants to know what else happened with Capel.
Oh, because I mentioned on the show that I think that he there was a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, just after, obviously, as I wrote about in the column I wrote, there was stuff going on all game between his staff that I just felt like their staff was out of control. From what I understand,
one of them is his brother, by the way.
One of them, who I think is
brother.
The biggest instigator,
yes.
honestly, is Jason Capel. But from what I understand, even after everything's got cleared out and the players went behind closed doors, there was still an effort from Jeff Capel to confront, wanted to maybe have another few words with Malik Ewan. And so it's like, listen, man, I don't know what that kid said to him. It might have been awful. I have no idea because it got him this mad. But dude, it's sticks and stones, dude. You're a millionaire college football coach. Who cares what Malik Ewan said to you? It was just ridiculous. I do think there should have been some sort of sanction against him, but it doesn't sound like it's going to happen.
What's crazy is I started to think when you were saying that, I'm like, maybe he wanted to explain to him why that wasn't the best thing to do in that moment. He's too good a player to dunk with 2 seconds left in a 10-point game.
It wasn't a teaching moment.
But even if it was a teaching moment, which I can give him the benefit of the doubt. It's not your role to teach Leonard Hamilton's players that. Remember when Krzyzewski told Dylan Brooks from Oregon, he took him aside after an NCAA tournament game and told him he's too good a player to act like that? It's like, man, shut up. Coach your own players. You have Grayson Allen on your team. Don't worry about other teams. So, yes, even the best case scenario is he was going to coach one of Leonard Hamilton's players.
Yeah, there was some of that during that's what started the thing.
I'm sure.
Jason Capel and Stan Jones, because Jason Capel came halfway to the court and telling Malik Ewan to go sit down and go to his own bench. And Stan Jones went over to him and was like, hey, man, coach your own players. Yeah, but then after the game, I'm not an expert lip reader, guys, but I could tell he was saying something along the lines of, you called me a blank. And then it kind of went from there.
Well, what word does it start with? What letter?
I couldn't tell exactly.
Was it a B?
Was it a B or a P?
I thought it might be a B.
But a B. Could have been a P.
It seemed like it was one syllable.
Okay, all right.
But anyway.
And what a good way to put a ribbon on it, guys. That's the Renegade Room questions for the day.
Hey, I got something I think I wanted to get y'all's, feedback real quick. You guys know how I feel about Mickey Andrews, obviously, and that Florida State has not done nearly enough for that man. At all, not even close. Did you see that the Tallahassee City Commission voted to rename a road after Rudy Hubbard, who was the FAMU great that was the coach? It's great. It's awesome. They voted to, so it passed 5-0. It's near FAMU. There's one named after Rudy Hubbard, and then there's two other.
Go. That opens the door.
There's two other educators from that area that are long dead, actually, that are having stretches of road named after them. And so I am going to write another column pleading with someone at Florida State or people watching this to reach out to the city commission and get something named. I think it should be Stadium Drive up until the stadium, or maybe Champions Way. Do y'all have a preference on what road should be renamed after Mickey?
I like Stadium Drive being named after Mickey.
I like
Stadium Drive sucks. What a stupid name. Yeah. Oh, what do we go to on this road? I guess it's a stadium. Like, it's not even Doak Drive. It's Stadium Drive.
You know how his license plate is Stop 'em, which is awesome.
It is awesome.
That is funny.
It should be a dead end. Could we find a dead end on campus?
Oh, man,
like,
nice.
That's what
you just hit a brick wall and go backwards.
Hey, Ira, to that end, they could have signs all over the campus from when I was there to what is there now, which is me trying to cut through places you can't cut through at all. And I'm constantly just stopping, going, what is this?
That's Mickey Andrews' way.
And then you just know, I can't get through here.
Yeah, I can't get through. No passing.
Mickey Andrews says no. There you go. Like, oh, sorry, Mickey. Yeah, it's
So I
perfect.
do think so. Apparently, there was a change in the way the city handles these things recently, where it's the city manager now that decides on. It became much easier to do this. So I'm just throwing it out there. I'm going to write a column about it here in the next day or two.
Hey, I'm just, I appreciate you using your microphone to get other people to do the work. You could craft an email too, buddy.
I did reach out to someone on the city commission, just wondering what's the protocol, what's the process it takes to rename. But I was like, am I supposed to be the person that pushes this thing along? I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I just
all right, boys. You guys
like Florida
argue amongst
State
each other. I'm leaving.
All right, guys.
That's it. That's all for Ira, Corey. I'm Jeff. We'll do this every week.
Sounds good.
Crazy questions in the Renegade room. Get after them. Later.